I just want to show kind of a comparison of list sources. I went deep. I looked at D7 Lead Finder, Data Axle, SIC Code. We went to Clean Leads, Lead Carrot, Seamless.ai. Most of you guys have probably tried some of these tools in the past with maybe good or intermittent results. And using it for our use case study, right, which is selling to plumbing and HVAC companies in markets where we actually have availability, which is a problem we're constantly trying to solve for. Is like we can't take everybody because we do exclusivity in certain markets. We pulled a list of plumbing companies in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And if you look at D7 Lead Finder data, which is kind of here, and I've got this as a link for you guys. Actually, I'll just drop this in as a point of reference. If you look at D7 Lead Finder, it came up with 69 records. But if you look closely, two things that really make this not productive from a cold outreach perspective. We don't know who the owner of the business is. Literally, they don't provide that data. They don't have access to it. The other is if you look at the message, like it's AP at, info at, inquiries at, help at. These are all emails that aren't going to get delivered. And if you call that company, you don't know the owner. Hey, can I talk to the owner of the business? You sound like an idiot, right? You're going to have to do some more due diligence going into that call so that you know who you're talking to, that you can have an intelligent conversation. Now, Data Axle, which is something I've really been a fan of over the years, is a little bit better, right? We do have some owner names in here. We've got the mailing address, which is helpful, but it's still kind of a montage. Knowing what I know about Allentown, Pennsylvania, some of the contact names aren't the right person. They have a name of somebody in the company, but it's not the owner. It's not the decision maker who you want access to. Clean Leads is another platform that really pulls against LinkedIn for our applications, serving local businesses for the most part. Was just completely all over the place. Very unuseful data. Lead Carrot, and I know that they've improved this, and I know they're working on it. It just didn't give good quality information that we could run with. And then Seamless.ai I found was more like once you've got a list and you want to append additional details, it's great for that, but it wasn't great for pulling the actual list data in the industry. And so after doing all my research, I came across Coldlytics, which is a relatively new list data source that we came across through the public group. And what's unique about them is they use all of these tools to gather the initial data for, let's say, a city and an industry that you're trying to gain prospect details in, but they put a researcher on the back end of it. So instead of pulling from public data sources, it pulls from public data sources, and then somebody with an intelligent eye for research looks and finds who's the owner of this business. Okay, what's the best email that would actually get delivered to that individual? And so this makes a big difference, right? Because you've got the right owner and you've got the right email address. And so if you look and compare the data that we got from Coldlytics versus D7 Lead Finder, any of the other sources, you'll see we've got the names of the owners of the business and we've got their most direct email address. And I was running this initially as a beta test, just to see like, is this legit? Is there any difference in quality? And I've done some business over the years in Allentown, Pennsylvania. As a matter of fact, one of our first great case study clients was Schuler Services in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And so if you look on here, it found Schuler Service, and it also found Greg Joyce, who's the current in the moment owner of that business. And this is the email that we always communicated with him on. So I was like, okay, that's a pretty good indication. And then for whatever reason, Greg Joyce decided to go a different direction a couple of years ago. And so we started working with Mates Home Services, really large company, lots of contacts. You've got an owner, you've got a director of business development, you've got a sales manager, but they found Dave DeWalt, the owner of the business, and Dave's direct email address that we actually communicated with him on day in and day out in the business. Dave was acquired recently, and so we're actually back trying to find the right client to work with today in Allentown. That's why this test is even being run in the first place. But you can see there's a big difference between having the actual correct owner and their email address that's actually going to get delivered, as opposed to just generic information that was pulled from public data sources. Give me a 1 in the comments if that makes sense. If you're clear that there's a difference between this data source and kind of having a researcher behind it, as opposed to just pulling from the internet and the World Wide Web. Okay, cool. So last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to hand this back to Matt so he can walk through it in depth, is that what we rolled out for you guys in OnRamp, which is all focused around landing at least 5 clients as quickly as possible, is based on this notion that we need to have good quality lists, right? And so if we're thinking about the actual getting of appointments and landing of clients, get a good list, do the outreach, and work the pipeline, right? Like step 1 is good list, right? And I think there's 2 sources of the list that you want to plug into. You want to get the association list so you can draft on affinity. Really want to re-encourage all of you guys, join the association, be part of that association, reach out to that list and become omnipresent in it. The second is to buy a list from the highest quality source you can get, which in my opinion right now is Coldlytics. And so that's where we're at. The rest of it in terms of the messaging, how you work the pipeline, how you follow up with the opportunities on there is in the training. And if you haven't gone through it recently, I suggest you go back through, because it is up to the moment, like our best strategies and tactics to get you guys through the door and on the calendar. So without further ado, Matt, thanks so much for being here, and thanks for developing this great platform that you guys have for gaining access to high quality list data.